All right. It is 11:30. We're going to go ahead and kick off our pre-commission agenda. I just want to say thank you to our tremendous team out there plowing our roads, taking care of the snow. Jennifer, Lloyd, you guys are doing an amazing job. I just want to remind the public that if you see a spot that's particularly icy or needs some attention, or maybe there's a downed limb, please reach out through our website. Does not include Commissioner Goldthorpe's driveway, unfortunately. Please, we've got an amazing website that has a button that says report a problem. You can use that and ask for some assistance, and we'll get back to you really quickly. But yeah, I had the pleasure of riding along with Joe what day was it? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday at 4, 5 in the morning. And was just so impressed by the enthusiasm and the attitude, and just folks doing such a great job in the technique that they have to address this, and being mindful of all the obstacles. And anyway, I know all of us really are so appreciative and grateful of the service that our team is doing right now. So in the meantime, please be safe on the roads. And if you do have sidewalks that are adjacent to your property, please remove the snow. And also don't put snow in the roadway. That would be great. Put it on your property. On my way in today, I saw a gentleman in a wheelchair waiting at the bus stop, and it was covered in snow, and the way to get there was not great. So again, please do your part by removing snow where you can that's adjacent to your property. And I think that's it for me. Any housekeeping items or questions on the agenda?
Madam President, sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Hanson?
Oh, I was just going to echo your comments. I think it's tremendous over since our last huge snowstorm, 6 years ago. We have a much greater capacity, but we've also added an enormous number of lane miles. So, and I appreciate that we have activated our contractors.
Yeah.
So there's an enormous amount out there, and people who understand math understand that there's only so many vehicles, even though we have more than we did before, and we still have, 5,500 center lane miles. So that means if there's more lanes than that, then you have multiple vehicles. Also, shout out to our communications department. I think they did a really good job rolling out over the last couple of months what to expect. So that's done a great job. People now understand what is a collector road and what is a local road a little bit better, and understand, oh yeah, that makes sense for this priority.
Thanks, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner McKinney?
Yes, thank you. Madam President, item number 4 on the consent agenda. I have some questions about this item, and I'm going to request that it be moved to the regular agenda just so that we can discuss it, and hopefully we have staff can talk about that project in particular.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I was going to request exactly the same thing, but for a couple of different reasons.
Okay, we'll be ready then. All right, Director.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, good morning. Glad to see you all here safely. I'd like to start off the Director's report with asking Jennifer to come up and give you an update of where we've been and where we're going. Jennifer? I believe she just had an interview on one of the local channels too, so she ran in just in time.
Commissioners, good morning. For the record, Jennifer Berenger, Deputy Director of Maintenance. As the director said, I just literally ran over from an interview with one of the local news affiliates. They've been very interested in telling our story to the community, and we always invite them for that. So I'm very excited to have that opportunity to talk to the media today. For this particular storm, our crews were out early in the morning before the flakes started falling, doing what they needed to do to pre-treat with the snow that came down. It came down so heavy right during that morning rush hour. So it's great that what I've seen is a lot of the community has been doing their part, driving slower, taking care of their cars as well. And I think a lot of people do recognize that it takes that time for us to get out, get all of the routes cleared. And we're going to be working through into tonight, and we're postured for the upcoming storms. We've already put our crews on standby that we're going to be going into 24-hour operations. So usually we have a little bit of a lull between kind of that 7 p.m. time frame and a 2 a.m. But we're going to have crews on full 24 hours for this upcoming set of storms. We anticipate that they're going to be coming in potentially early tomorrow morning. Weather reports are saying a few different things, but we're ready for it. Crews are postured, and we've also made a few other adjustments. The community might see some of the, instead of having an individual plow, they might see plow teams going out, and that's when we will stack like a grader and a couple of plows behind them so they can all work together in concert to clear the mains for the main thoroughfares to get in and out of those heavily traveled areas. We're doing north-south streets as well as east-west. So that's one of the changes we've already implemented. And then it was also mentioned we've had an on-call ready standby list for contract support. So we've already reached out to several of our contractors, started getting those started today already. So they're working some of the school areas, putting the attention on those so that they'll be cleared off and ready to go for tomorrow. And then we're going to be putting some extra attention in the downtown areas tonight as well to get everything cleared off as best we can before the refreeze. So we're postured really well. Equipment is doing well. We're getting parts overnighted where we have to and getting them back on the road as quickly as possible. So the mechanics are doing a fantastic job with that. Materials are in a good place as well. We've got more coming, so we're getting as much as we can before the storm, just in case some of those main supply chains through the interstate areas get closed down with this storm, because it's going to affect the entire state and it's going to affect some of that supply chain. But we've been posturing, and if we need one part, we bring two in just to make sure that we have those on ready. So overall, people are doing great. We just started our fresh Crew 1 team today. So we moved from Crew 1 being on call to Crew 2, but we put everybody on standby for that 24 hours. And that's, I'm anticipating that that's what we're going to be going into the next storm. So people are great, equipment's great, material is great. I think we're postured real well.
Thanks, Jennifer.
I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioners. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
It's going to be fun. I remember back in 2016 and 17, and it seemed like it was simultaneously a member of the commission, our executive team, and the mayor of Meridian that said, hey, why can't we get private contractors? And then we started knocking doors. We were a little late that year, but we aren't anymore.
Yep. We started before the season, make sure they're on ready. And we called them earlier this week knowing what was going to be happening. So the official call went out this morning to start making those, having those guys come in.
Jennifer, just a quick question about the contractors. So are they assigned a different set of priority routes compared to our staff, or are they just building, accelerating our first priority routes?
Right now, they're still kind of helping us with some of the priority ones.
Okay.
Because that is our number one priority. As we get into the storm, we're already starting to see some of the comments come in from people who are letting us know in the residentials where they absolutely can't move. And we'll attack those as they come in as well with some of that contract support. So the contractors are able to take the big grader equipment and move a lot of snow very quickly. It's not pretty because they're really pushing it out of the way just to ensure that cars can get through and be mobile, because that's our number one goal, is to make sure that people are mobile and that can get to where they need to go. But yeah, right now we've got them addressing some of our school crossing areas, which is in the priority one. We'll get into those priority twos with school bus routes. And then our priority threes are the residentials. And we're probably going to be getting to the point where we're going to need to get the contractors into the residentials as well.
So with it's not currently snowing right now, how long do you think it's going to take to make sure that the arterials are clear?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so it's not currently snowing right now, which gives us that. It takes usually maybe 4 to 5 hours to completely clear the main roadways, and then a little bit more to clear a little bit beyond that for the bike lanes. Multi-use pathways are being addressed with our mini plow today, and our sealed crews with the shovels and manual labor are working on some of the bridge overpasses as well. So some of those things are going to take longer than the 4 hours, but I would say 4 hours, 5 hours to get the main arterials cleared off. Unless we have a plow team on it, that'll be quicker, but yeah, it'll take us the bulk of the day to get everything cleared off. And the important thing is we want to get it all off the roads before it freezes, so we're postured well for the freeze and then for the next round of accumulation.
Thanks, Jennifer. Anything else? Okay, great job.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
We are very grateful for Jennifer's leadership and Lloyd's leadership in this. They're doing a phenomenal job. Commissioner Pickering, Commissioner Gold, earlier today, I did send a note out to the mayor in Boise to ask for permission to plow in Boise. She was very gracious. She has agreed to that. As a matter of fact, for the remainder of this entire storm system. And at the same token, she would like to do a ride-along that we'll be more than happy to help her with going forward. The only concern we have, again, is supply chain coming out of Salt Lake. As you all know, when we get this type of weather here, that interstate gets shut down. And so Jennifer's team is monitoring the salt shipments very, very closely. I think 25, Jennifer, is what you've got loaded coming in. Now, as you all know, we do have a rather large reserve of salt being stored in a different area. Depending upon how things go, I may be coming to you to bring you some other options if we need to go down that path. But they're doing a tremendous job. Commissioners, Thursday, February 8th, and such, we are setting up at the Amity Elementary School for the Southwest Boise neighborhood a construction update briefing. The anticipation is to let all those residents know what is ahead of them for not next month, not the month after that, but the next years, so that we have an opportunity to lay everything out, say, here's what we know from both construction, utilities, you name it, across the board. Commissioners Goldthorpe and Commissioner Hanson, you will get an invitation to join myself, Justin, and Ryan Head as we make our presentation. The thought is we'd like to just be right up front with the public and say, here it is, and such, here's what we know, and here's what we're doing.
What day is this?
February 8th.
Okay.
It'll be on your calendars.
What time? In evening?
Excuse me?
It's late afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Amity Elementary School. I don't have the time yet, I don't think. Yeah. But our communications team is setting that up and such. Again, the initiative was to get in front of the public now and let them know it's going to be a challenge.
So it's Southwest Boise and South Meridian.
Yeah.
Because Meridian's a chunk of that too.
And so that'll be up on the agenda. Commissioners, again, the Meridian Joint Session is coming up and such later this month. The 4 topics are, at this point in time, the Linder ITD grant process. Meridian will be making their thoughts and comments about that. McMillan Road, 3 to 5 lanes. They'll lead that discussion. We'll be prepared to offer all of the obstacles, if we could say that, on that type of discussion. The Integrated 5-Year Work Plan kickoff with specifics to Meridian. We hosted the new mayor with Commissioner Pickering, Commissioner Gold here just, I think, last week, if not, and such, and was very specific on Eagle only. I think it went very, very well. But our team will be making that presentation. And then an update on the USTIC facility, where we are in the design process. That'll be Jennifer and her team and such. More on that shortly as we move forward. We have as you know, commissioners, in our push for accelerated innovation or lose, and the 10 operational imperatives that I shared with you earlier. One of those in both was a continued focus on AI. How do we leverage AI here? And I want to thank Commissioner Gold for letting us know about that conference. We will be there for that. However, we did get an update, or at least an invite from I think it was Google, if I'm not mistaken. They have an opportunity to assess, without coming into the infrastructure, all of our traffic signals to see if there is a way to increase efficiency, decrease delay times, increase the support for the environment, and it is a no charge. So we are taking advantage of that. We'll let you know what the outcome is as we move forward. But this is another step in, again, leveraging all the new ideas that are coming in front of not only the country, but Idaho as we move forward. So I'll keep you posted as to, how we do and what timeframes are there. And with that, commissioners, I will just reiterate what Jennifer said. Crew spirits are high. They're thoroughly enjoying the operation. I don't know how those spirits will be in 2 weeks, but I mean, right now, everything's going incredibly well. And we hope we should have all that stuff moved off the roadways the maximum possible by later this evening, because as you all know, when those temperatures go down to 19 degrees, we can't get it off the road at that point in time. It's glued and such. So that being said, that's my director's report for you. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director, and your leadership on this. Any commission questions for Director? All right,
Okay,
well then we'll
thank
be
you.
at ease until noon. Thank you. Okay. All right, it's now 12 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Thanks for joining us in person and online. Please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is to adopt the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and are action items unless otherwise noted. The consent agenda is enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on items on the consent agenda. If a commissioner or citizen would like, they may request any item be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. We do have that request, so
Madam President, I would move that to adopt the consent agenda, moving item 4 from the consent agenda to item 4 on the regular agenda.
should we place it? Oh, it's moved and seconded. Do we want to have that be listed?
As item 4. We have 3 items on the regular
Perfect,
agenda.
item 4, perfect. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our regular agenda. So yeah, it's our fiscal 2023 financial audit. Welcome, Ms. Jem Humphreys. Hello.
Madam President, Commissioners, for the record, Jen Humphreys, Accounting Supervisor here at ACHD. Last week, you should have gotten a copy of our audited financials for 23. And here to give you some highlights is Kristen Diggs, our partner at iBailey.
Welcome, Kristen.
All right, Commissioners, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present to you today. I'm just going to go through everything very high level. If you have any questions, though, please don't hesitate to ask. So in the packet that you received, we did go through and complete the fiscal year 23 financial statement audit. As part of that audit, we did look at your federal programs as well, what we call a single audit. So in the financials packet that you see, there are 3 different audit opinions that we provided in there. The first one is on page 1. It's a financial statement opinion. It is an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, so it's the highest opinion we can give. The next one is on page 53 of the document. It's our auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting. So if there would have been any audit adjustments, any breakdown internal controls, anything like that, this is where we'd have the opportunity to talk about it. It is an unmodified opinion. There were no findings related to that. On page 55 of the document is our auditor's report on compliance for each major federal program. In your federal programs that you have, we did take a look at one program this year. It's the Highway Planning and Construction Program. There were no findings as a result of the procedures that we performed. As far as, like I said before, there was no audit adjustments. As a result, there was one pass adjustment that should be highlighted in the separate letter that's included with the packet that you received. And all that pass adjustment was just something auditing or accounting standards require us to fair market value the LGIP. It's not really how it transacts. It pretty much transacts like a savings account, and so management just passes on it every year. As far as the rest of it goes, the financial statements that you see here are prepared by management. We are outperforming procedures at the beginning of October over the financial statements or over the federal programs, and then we come back out at Thanksgiving and do the rest of it. And so we're out here in everything probably about a month and a half after financial close. And so the fact that management's able to go through and get that, we didn't have any audit adjustments. They really do a fantastic job out here. And so we really appreciate everyone's help in getting through this. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll take them.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, any questions?
No, I Appreciate it. It's
Commissioner
good
Hanson.
reading. I
You
appreciate
don't
it.
usually hear that.
He was kidding.
Yeah. So, but the staff you guys have here have been really awesome to work with, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, if there's no other, oh, Commissioner Goldberg.
I would like to say one thing, and I believe that this is primarily for two reasons. Number one is the model that we represent here at ACHD and how we, a multi-jurisdictional separate government. And the fact is that there's no way in the world that we can mess up very bad with our financials, because we can't shift money around, let's say from putting them into the roads to putting them into sewers. You know, we don't have that freedom. And we don't even think in terms of doing anything that isn't absolutely in the broad daylight of public scrutiny, transparent, and fully disclosed. And I appreciate that more than I can say, but I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. And
Commissioner
Madam
Hanson.
President, it's always nice to see when you're on the commission, as long as you are, that some of the capital assets you've been working to invest in over many years start showing up in the report, like the Kootenai project and the expansion of 10 Mile and Roosevelt and Christine. Those are all. So I appreciate. I mean, that shows, okay, those aren't just projects. Those have been turned into capital assets. Those are assets that we've invested in. It's nice to see some of those because I recognized when they started.
And I will say that your staff do a really good job of reaching out to us throughout the year as new issues come up. So you will notice in the financials, there was a new accounting standard that was implemented. And so that didn't really create a hiccup in the audit because they had reached out to us. And so we had worked through that ahead of time. So it just helps the entire process.
Thank you so much. Okay, Commissioners, this is a request for approval.
Madam President, I would move to approve and accept the audited financial statements dated September 30th, 2023.
Second that.
So moved and seconded. Just want to say thank you. And I agree with the Commissioner's comments, and being financially secure and transparent is at the bedrock of everything that we do. And it's a pleasant validation when we get a report like this. So thank you, team, for your amazing work and keeping that and making sure that's possible.
Yeah. I just
Commissioner
want to
Hanson.
say, because we're going to talk about the 5-year plan later on in this, we are building capital assets for the public for a time when we're all 6 feet under. These are assets that are very important, and we're putting them in, we're building them. So it's not just something that is there and gone. We're actually creating value.
Okay. All those in favor, did you have something, Commissioner?
No, I'm just going to be funny.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Madam President, for our privilege, please.
Director Wong.
We have the accounting team here today that has been responsible for going through these tremendous audits that you do. So I'd like to have them stand and be recognized.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Director Wong. All right, well, with that, we're going to move on to item number 2. That's the Boise West Bench Neighborhood Transportation Plan adoption. This is a request for adoption. Welcome, Aaron.
Good evening, Madam President and the Commission. My name is Aaron Williams, Senior Transportation Planner for ACHD. Today, I'll be covering the Boise West Bench Neighborhood Transportation Plans as we prepare for adoption hearing. All right. So the purpose of the neighborhood transportation plans is really used as a project identification tool for the integrated 5-year work plan. The goal is to update back to the community as well as implement previously adopted plans within the update to the West Bench Neighborhood Transportation Plan. And also, we want to continuously identify needs within the planning area through the public and give them the opportunity to provide feedback as well as concerns about the area that they're living in. The Neighborhood Transportation Plan update. To the left, I have a map outlining the current areas that are that we're going through and we're doing these updates. They consist of Meridian Downtown as well as the Boise West Bench. Out of all the neighborhood transportation plans since 2012, we were able to identify 1,379 projects. Of those, we've completed since 2012, 301. And we were also able to integrate 230 projects in the recently adopted Integrated 5-Year Work Plan of 24-28. Now, Commission, this slide's really illustrating the planning area more in depth of the West Bench. On this slide, we also worked with our consultant to highlight attractors as well as barriers throughout. And so you see the little blue dots, those highlight various attractors within the planning area as well as outside the planning area. So we wanted to take more of a comprehensive approach when it came to updating these plans to figure, okay, the line just doesn't stop outside the planning area, it goes forward. So we got to make these connections. So in 2013, the original plan called out for 35 intersection crossings, 49 bicycle projects, as well as 80 pedestrian projects. Of those, we've completed 33 projects overall, which included 18 pedestrian bike projects, as well as 15 roadway and intersection projects. This map is detailing all the completed projects we have done in the Boise West Bench area. Now, Commission, Madam President and the Commission, this map is illustrating the recommended projects that we're bringing forth with this plan update. Here we have sidewalk improvements, bike improvements, as well as crossing improvements that the public and recently adopted plans identified within the planning area. The planning process, as I stated last time, we start by analyzing. We go and analyze existing conditions. From there, we review previously recommended projects as well as additional adopted plans to take a more comprehensive approach. From that point, we go and develop draft recommendations. This is where we work with our community partners. I'd like to note that the City of Boise is full on board with the adoption of these plans and all the efforts that we've done for the planning area. From this point, we get to public, and this is where the public has opportunity to provide their insight as well as concerns that they have within the planning area. After that, we go to a refinement period where we refine recommendations and evaluate priorities. So we prioritize all the projects that we've received from recently adopted plans as well as from the public, and we illustrate them within the West Bench neighborhood transportation plans. From there, we get to the submittal phase where we're at right now, and this is the adoption hearing. That's today. Some transportation attractors that we noticed within the Boise West Bench consisted of schools, retail dining, entertainment, parks, and other civil facilities. There's also some barriers that we worked with our consultant to identify that's in the area and outside the area, and they include irrigation canals, the Union Pacific Railroad, high-stress roadways, as well as roadways that don't provide connections to various attractors. These are the recommended projects that we're bringing forth with the update. We're bringing forth 32 projects that include bicycle projects, as well as 52 projects consisting of pedestrian and crossing projects. Now, Madam President of the Commission, I'd like to note that we did list major roadway improvement projects as identified in the CIP to take a more holistic approach when it came to addressing the planning area. And those are just based on the CIP. Recommendation, staff recommends the adoption of the Boise West Bench Neighborhood Transportation Plan as it is written.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yep.
Commissioners.
Yes.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Could you go back off to that, keep going, there.
Yeah.
I don't believe that there are very many people outside of this body that understand why we plan for stuff like this. Last year, we had about 100 or more traffic fatalities or people that were so badly injured that they'll never be the same. This is from law enforcement. And these types of projects that you see the little indications for are to keep people alive. Now, the bad part about all this is you saw we had over 1,300 projects in neighborhood plans from 10 years ago, and we only completed about a fourth of them. And so my hope is that we can somehow keep our revenue stream high enough that we don't do that again in the next 10 years. Thanks.
Commissioner Hanson.
Madam President, first, Aaron, we raised a couple of things. We talked about a couple of things in this and then the next plan at our meeting in December. How were they incorporated into this plan? Any of those suggestions or changes, or is this basically the same thing we looked at in December?
Madam President of the Commission. So after we had that work session, I worked with the team here at ACHD and our consultant. We were able to go back and make those edits that the Commission brought forth, as well as the public, and we provided their feedback and with this update. So this is an update from where we came from the
okay.
work session.
Because I noticed the date still says November 2023.
Oh.
So from our work session back in December.
Yeah, December.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
A couple things. I still, I guess it's the way in which we approach this is larger questions for the staff or the commission, describing our neighborhood projects. Because really it's about integrated projects. And we talk about the network, the bike network and the pedestrian network. What I think it's really critical that we talk about how we've invested in the traffic vehicle network already. So there's this, and if there are weaknesses in that, the neighborhood plan should point that out. But in this case, there's a lot of that network already built out and functioning. So I think it needs to be integrated because the impression is left that we're only interested in the bike network or the pedestrian network. And that's not true because we want a fully integrated network. The reality is in these neighborhoods, people talk about getting to one place or another by one of those modes or another. Today, they're not likely to walk. They're going to wait till the roads are clear, and they're going to drive there because it's not going to be very pleasant, or they're not going to bike. The other is, again, this is the way in which we approach neighborhood projects or areas to talk about them in a more integrated fashion because we've directed to move towards one and done. We're going to make the system function. So it really doesn't make sense to say we got this many bike projects and this many ped projects and this many this. It's like we've got this many projects. Some were big, some were small, but those projects were integrated. They actually improved the movement of vehicles. They improved the traffic safety. They improved whatever those aspects were. So there's multiple aspects. So it doesn't make sense then to then have a report back that says that still uses these siloed checkoffs. So in terms of, we've improved the PCI, there's now greater mobility for people to walk to the park or to the school. So and the PCI of the road is improved. The other is, and it's something we don't do, and I don't know how we can integrate it, but the reality is just what we just talked about with the audit is that the key, especially in this neighborhood where there's not been a lot of investment in trying to enhance the assets, both public and private, is that there's increased asset investment because we're dependent on property taxes. So it's critically important that our public investment help to improve the ability of people to invest or the desire of people to invest in those assets. So then that improves the property tax base. We don't want to waste those assets by saying, okay, nobody wants to invest in this because it's not connected, people don't use it, businesses don't want to open there, people don't want to live there. So thinking of that, we don't use that metric, but maybe there's some metric out there that we could use. So we're talking about, we've done these projects in these neighborhoods, we want to do these projects, we've improved and enhanced the mobility of people in the network to get around by car, by walking and by biking, and therefore we've enhanced and we've improved. The PCI is a critical index because there's areas of this neighbor in particular where I noticed that on the PCI report we got a couple months ago, they're due for some major overhaul, LTS and the asset base. So just want to say that's a better way to approach it, and I'd like us to move away from the siloed approach of checking off bike project, crosswalk project, and think of them as projects, integrated projects.
Thanks, Commissioner Hanson. Ken, do you mind pulling up that slide again? Thank you. So, Aaron, thank you for your presentation. And I appreciate Commissioner Hanson's question about, what has changed, and could you reshare? It's not popping up online. I wanted to highlight a couple things, and I have some questions for you. beautiful. Thanks, Ken. So I really appreciate, because, like we talked about last time we saw this, the importance, and I think you highlighted that in your presentation, the importance of connecting to these really important attractions that oftentimes are right on the peripheral of this neighborhood and this part in my district. And I appreciate the improvement idea section right there on U-Stick that goes down. There's a lot of exciting development that's happening around there and a very big community demand for being able to not have to take their car and take their kids to all different types of things that are happening either on the Greenbelt or Garden City or up there on the bench. And so we've talked about this a little bit here and there as a commission and as an organization about, coordinating with our other jurisdictions on like the whole idea of those community hubs, like that community hub model, right? And, we really do have one on Cole and U-Stick there. But so you have this improvement idea going east, but you don't have it, it just kind of stops at that intersection. So what's kind of your thought process of not expanding it maybe all the way to Milwaukee, for example?
Madam President and the Commission, the reason for, why we stopped there was it was more of an identification of what we noticed when we did our public outreach in that process. And so that's what the public brought forth, as well as adopted plans. That's what they illustrated. And so if that's, a project that you would like, we can look into that. But that's the justification for why we chose to stop right at on the east side for U-Stick.
Well, I think that's reflective of, generally the comments, but I know that we need to be thinking like a little bit of a longer stretch, right? And longer term. So I think if we can explore that, assuming this gets adopted, I think that would be a really good next step, as well as, for those of you that tuned into the various, swearing in ceremonies with all of our cities, I attended Boise's last night, and one of the main priorities is the pathways connections and funding those pathways and improvements on pathways. And obviously the Glenwood, Goddard, Mountain View intersection is on this plan, but there's a potential connection to that Settlers Canal, right? It's just kind of literally like 20 feet away from that intersection. That's an example of something that's not on this plan, but it's something that intersection should be cognizant of when we go out and build it. So those are the types of details that I'm hoping that we can kind of capture in here, that it's like, this is an intersection improvement that's going to support this different use of activity, hopefully, that's going to come in the next under 5 years potentially. So how would you move forward in capturing kind of that type of thought process?
Madam President and the Commission, from that process,
I'm not saying we need to change this.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like we need to kind of, tab that so that we make sure that when we get into concept, design, right? Like that's a notation that we don't leave off.
Okay. So we can add that on to the plan description itself.
Yeah. Sorry, Commission. Just very quickly, Madam President, Commission. So that's a great point, and that's something we have been doing as part of these neighborhood plans. Within the plan, we have worked with the City of Boise to identify those pathway, to incorporate their pathway master plan and have it reflected there. We have been in conversation on how those are reflective on both as part of projects. There's a couple of projects that might identify those type of connection, but also in additional consideration. That way, as these projects move to the next stage, those are being evaluated as part of as a holistic concept of the network. So,
and I think I love the verbiage that you use, Ensign, because I think, for instance, just looking at that intersection, right, we've got Capitol High, we've got all of these things going on there, and looking on this map, we've got considering we've got the facilities and then some recommendations. And I think these are really good starting points, but there's some aspects that I think could be, there's a lot of development and investment that's going on in this bench right here with Spalding Ranch, Goddard Linear Park, right? So I want us to not hold back in terms of just because we said, this like intersection improvement, check. It's like, well, actually, what could we do just a little bit beyond that actually is more comprehensive or holistic based off of the new uses that are happening, because that's really what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. There's a ton of investment, a ton of change for the better. And I just want to make sure that the plan and the projects that we're going to be going in to improve the West Bench are going to be supportive and complementary of those investments.
Madam President,
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
just one possible clarification, and I'm not trying to take words out of your mouth. But for instance, you mentioned the Settlers Canal and the connection to that pathway.
Yeah.
As long as things are in our right of way, we can plan, we can do all kinds of things. But if it ain't in our right of way, we will not be building on it. And we certainly can't condemn anything for it. But the great thing, because of what we were just told, is the collaboration with our other partners, so that, for instance, in that case, the city has a chance to do their thing at exactly the same time that we're doing ours, but we don't break any rules.
Oh, and I'm not saying that.
And you weren't.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't understand what the limits of our authority and how we can spend money and that sort of thing is. And I read too much on social media, I guess, but all of a sudden someone will say, oh, yeah, they're going to start, building pathways. And no, we're going to be correlating everything that we can do with what our partners can do so that their plans come to fruition at the same time that ours do. That's all.
Can I keep that slide up, would you? Thank you. Stacey,
We do have public comment, so
Perfect,
whenever
thank
you're
you.
ready.
thank you.
Madam
So
President.
I'm not finished yet. Hold on. I'll wrap up. So I just want to say, I think this looks really good. Just want to make sure that in the notes moving forward, that we're mindful, and maybe it's just a little bullet, right? Because there's going to be a lot of investment, a lot of wrapping up big things from the cities, lots of different other jurisdictions. And I just want to be really mindful of that. Okay, thank you. Commissioner McKinney.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Aaron, just a couple of quick questions on this. Just to clarify then, the procedure from this point forward is that all of these projects here that have been identified in this neighborhood transportation plan, they all then get inserted into our integrated 5-year work plan. Is that correct, or what happens next?
Madam President and Commissioner McKinney. It's used as an identification tool. So we identify the projects through the adopted plans as well as public outreach. And from there, when it's time to integrate, they go in and they scope out if it's worthy to get in the integrated 5-year work plan, as well as provide a budget to it.
Okay, so there's like a couple additional steps
Yeah.
before these projects actually get put into the plan.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then just let me ask you one last question. With respect to these various projects that have been identified, whether they're crossing projects or ADA projects or intersection projects, what have you, do we have, in identifying these, have we correlated them with or viewed them in connection with accident data? Commissioner Goldthorpe mentioned a few minutes ago about, the number of accidents and injuries and so on. Is that information used in identifying these, and do we have a good correlation between them, or how has that been considered?
Madam President and Commissioner McKinney, we do consider that when it comes to the prioritization tool. And so within the plan, the update, we were able to highlight high crash locations. And from there, if there's a project that's at least in the vicinity of a high crash location, it'll increase its up on the prioritization tool. And so that's something that we're keeping in mind, as well as in the barrier section that I highlighted in the PowerPoint. That's one of the transportation barriers that comes within this project area. Honestly, all the project areas. And so, because if there's high crash locations, for example, and users they're deteriorated from those high crash locations just to be safe, for example. Like if I'm a cyclist, I wouldn't want to go down that way. I'd go a different way. And so making sure that we can come up with a project or a concept that looks at how to mitigate the crashing there, then it's something that we consider.
So the question of correlating those two pieces of information is one of our subsequent steps, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
It hasn't really been done yet. That's to come.
To Madam President and Commissioner McKinney, it's to come per se. We looked at it and we identified the high crash locations with the project. Now, figuring out how we maneuver past that to make it a safer route, that's something that's next steps.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hanson.
Madam President, Aaron, one more question, and this more to which we describe, looking at Fairview State and Vista have been identified by the city of Boise and by VRT as priority transit routes. So there's a lot of focus on investment in transit. And it seems to me we have Fairview for improved bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Those bicycle lanes are not used because they're so unsafe. I mean, it's frightening to see them when somebody actually is in a bicycle lane on Fairview. And the sidewalks are attached, so they're not terribly safe too. But so it's a whole integrated approach to figure out how, including cross access. There's a lot of issues, as Commissioner Goldthorpe pointed out, that the city can negotiate with property owners. If we're also making an investment in the improvements at the same time, and VRT. So I think the reference to the fact that Fairview is, in fact, an identified priority transit route, it's an identified corridor for denser development and transformation for the next generation of private investment that the city's identified under their new zoning code. So, and we would do the same, obviously, in the way we describe State Street and Vista. But Fairview, it seems to me this plan ought to reference that that's a priority corridor by Boise and VRT, which I don't see that referenced within the plan.
Madam President and Commissioner Hanson, that's something we can definitely add in the additional considerations moving forward, keeping that in mind, referencing outside agency partners' plans that they have already highlighting those areas. But as I said before, the neighborhood transportation plans are a project identification tool, so it's definitely something that we can get going with additional considerations moving forward.
Okay.
Any other comments on this before we move into public testimony? Okay. Ms. Stacy?
We have one. We have Tessa Grieger. She's online.
Welcome, Tessa. Please state your name and address, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madam President, members of the commission. My name is Tessa Grieger. I live at 3638 South Vintage Way, Boise, Idaho, 83706. And I am the Mobility and Public Spaces Manager for the City of Boise, and it's good to see everyone again. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of the City of Boise, and would like to share our support for the adoption of the West Bench Neighborhood Transportation Plan that is before you today for consideration. First, I would like to thank Aaron and the team for all the work and leadership that they put into this plan. As always, they've been fantastic to work with and very responsive to our comments and questions throughout the process. So really appreciate all the hard work there and the collaboration. We're really excited to see the bicycle and pedestrian recommendations and the advancement of complete streets and mobility projects that are included in the plan. We often hear from people living in the West Bench and West Boise that it's challenging to walk and bike in this part of town, and by being able to move these projects forward and completing this proposed network will make a significant difference in providing transportation options for folks to get around their community and access places they want to go or where they need to go. And perhaps more importantly, to the conversation around safety, these projects will really make a difference in terms of improving safety for our most vulnerable roadway users as well as all of our roadway users. I'd also like to acknowledge that we really appreciate the inclusion and consideration of certain recommendations from the city's Pathways Master Plan and appreciate the comments and questions that came up around that. We certainly see that as a big opportunity for us to continue to work with ACHD to integrate and move some of those recommendations forward. And there are recommendations within this plan that have been identified that will support the implementation of the Pathways Master Plan. So we look forward to continuing to work together to identify those key connections, whether it's connections on Glenwood and the Goddard connection there, as well as others that have been identified in this area and throughout the city of Boise. Just want to thank everyone so much for their time and for your consideration of this plan. We're excited to see it move forward and look forward to continuing to collaborate to advance these critical projects. So thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. Any questions? Appreciate your partnership and vision as well. Okay, thanks, Aaron. All right, commissioners, if there's no other comment, right, Stacey? No other last call for public comment? Okay. With that, this is before you, commissioners. Is there a motion?
Yes, I would request that we amend and move that we approve and adopt the Boise West Bend Neighborhood Transportation Plan.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
So moved and seconded. Commissioner Hanson?
Well, I just hope in future that as we move forward, our plans are more integrated in the way they described and less siloed. So my comments, I hope, will be taken seriously, and that we describe these by all modes of transportation, because we're creating a false impression out there that we're not interested in the network that we've invested in for automobile traffic, and that's not true. And this plan actually improves that network, but we've siloed it in the way we've described it. So I really want to see it more integrated and get away from our siloed type of descriptions that check off projects, and to fully integrate the priorities of our partners, VRT and the city of Boise in this case.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to our third item. It's the Meridian Downtown Neighborhood Transportation Plan adoption. This is a request for adoption. Mr. Williams again.
Madam President and the Commission, I'm back again for the adoption of Meridian Downtown Neighborhood Transportation Plan. My name is Aaron Williams, for the record, Senior Transportation Planner for ACHD. For the purpose, it's the same purpose. We had the same mindset when we were maneuvering with the update to the Meridian Downtown Neighborhood Transportation Plan. And so, as I said, project identification to update back to the community, look at adopted plans, and continue to identify projects within the public. The same plan update, we are able to integrate 230 projects in the 24-28 integrated 5-year work plan, as well as completed 301 since 2012. Here is a more in-depth map of the Meridian Downtown planning area that we're focused on. And so, in this PowerPoint or this slide, it's illustrating the tractors, connectors, various grocery stores that the public may want to use living in this area, as well as outside the area. The 2012 Downtown Meridian Neighborhood Transportation Plan originally called out for 2 intersection projects, as well as 39 bicycle projects and 48 pedestrian projects. Of those, we've completed 12 projects overall, which include 9 pedestrian bike projects and 8 roadway and intersection projects. Here's a map illustrating all the projects that we've completed in the Downtown Meridian area. Here's a map illustrating the new projects that we're bringing forth with this update. These include sidewalk improvement projects, bike improvement, as well as crossing improvement projects. The planning process is the same as the West Bench. We go through analyzing existing conditions, review, develop, public input, refine, and the subliminal phase for commission hearing for the adoption of these plans. The same thing, we worked with our consultants to highlight attractors within the area: school, retail, dining, entertainment, parks, other civil facilities such as the City Hall. And we also noticed that there were the same barriers within the planning area of Meridian Downtown. Bringing forth the recommended projects, we're bringing forward 14 bicycle projects as well as 20 pedestrian crossing projects. In the same note before, we did list major roadway improvement projects within this plan as identified in the CIP. Staff recommends the adoption of the Downtown Meridian Neighborhood Transportation Plan update as it is written.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yes.
Commissioners, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, this particular neighborhood plan represents really very well what I like to consider as one of my philosophies or core philosophies about development and making things easier for all users of the roads, and that is that we start in core areas. And downtowns are probably the most obvious core areas. You know, schools are a core area, shopping centers are a core area, parks are a core area, but this is perfect. I wish that you put down a slide or so back some of the obstacles, and still after all the years, it's been maybe 15 years that I've been working on trying to get the railroad to grant access so that folks don't have to utilize the roads and small sidewalks and things for their pedestrian and bicycle needs. We're still no better than we were 15 years ago. And it's a crying shame, and it isn't anybody's fault except for that entity. Unfortunately, when the emphasis to get that type of connectivity integrated further, when it went to Compass, then it just became part of another much larger program and has kind of gone away. And I consider that a crying shame. But as we develop this core and others, just like with the bench area, I hope that somehow we have the revenues available to make these cores as connected and everything else as we'd like to see. That's all I have to say.
Any other comments on the plan?
Madam President, I have a
Commissioner Hanson?
question. I know Ashley Squires asked in an email I read today that about that Meridian Development Association was just asking with City of Meridian to hold off until the Meridian master plan, destination downtown master plan is finished. Is that finished? Are they ready? Because they just asked staff to hold off implementation. I'm reading from her communications to us today.
I mean, you probably can give a better answer than me, Aaron.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I didn't receive that email, so I'm unaware if that's completed.
So my understanding is that we adjusted for their timeline.
We've already done that?
Yes.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, certainly at the very start of this project, we worked with Meridian Development Corp to incorporate them as part of this neighborhood plan. We even, to make sure that projects that were identified through their process were part of it, we paused this neighborhood plan during the summer. And that's why we did the public outreach until September. That way we were able to incorporate their comments into our plan and make it more integrated to what they're expecting to see adopted in the future. We don't know exact dates for their adoption, but we are confident that we have incorporated their comments into our plan at this moment in time.
And that was what I heard directly from Ashley.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question then. As they're developing their plan, and this impacts some of the projects we're doing along Linder and Locust Grove, is that does Meridian view downtown as ending at Locust Grove and Linder as this plan does, or do they see destination downtown as actually extending more into those neighborhoods? Because we sort of just drew a couple of straight lines and used those as the borders, and then the ones on the outside are sort of to the east and the west are sort of just put in with everything to the north. And I'm wondering whether that's consistent with the way Meridian is envisioned its destination downtown master plan. And if not, do we consider adjusting our boundaries to make it more consistent with what they're looking at? Because I noticed there's a couple of schools just over the line, both of Locust Grove and Linder. And it seems to me maybe that we don't have a straight line, and that actually Meridian views its downtown core with a more way in which people view the downtown and getting to downtown who live on the other side of those two streets.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson. So we draw the neighborhood plans boundaries based on there's no rule of thumb of how we define those boundaries, but we try to follow what the cities have defined in their comprehensive plans. So the way we have it set it up right at this moment in time is how they reflected probably in their comprehensive plan at this moment in time. We recognize that the Meridian Development Corp has different boundaries, and that's why we also identified within the description of the project, which are within incorporating in those plan segments, for example, on those boundaries, within those boundaries, because we recognize that they're a urban renewal district as well. So certainly we did that analysis as part of the existing condition as we worked with them as part of this initial, at the beginning of this project, for sure.
So Madam President, I would ask, because in Boise, at least, we know it's basically existing neighborhood associations sort of put together in a geographic area, so they exist. We don't have those in Meridian, but we do have Meridian Development Agency. We have the City of Meridian and their planning process. And I would say we need to be open to adjusting those lines, those boundaries, so we view activity centers, because it just feels like we've taken the downtown core and the rest is sort of just left over to the north and to the south. And I don't think that's true, but I don't know how that's reflected in our planning process, other than, well, these are just a list of projects we're going to be working on. So I just suggest that I think there should be more control or direction from Meridian to decide where our neighborhood boundaries are, and it would be nice to see them reflect those.
Any other questions, Commissioner
Madam
McKinney?
President, yeah, I guess, and really to kind of put a final point on it, this discussion that's been had just a moment ago, I guess there are two key questions, and I want to be sure that we have clear answers to those. Number one, is the area that we are looking at consistent with the downtown area that the city is looking at? Because I seem to recall that Mr. Bautista's response to the question was, it's probably the same. I'd like to be a little more certain than that. That's number one. And then number two, have we considered all of the things that Meridian is looking at, or is there still additional input from Meridian that we need? Because that would answer this one. The only question in my mind is, are we ready to decide this today, or should we wait a little? And that's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned.
Madam President, members of the commission, Commissioner McKinney, question one. So Meridian does not have defined neighborhood associations like the city of Boise does. So they haven't defined a specific geographic area for different parts of their community with neighborhood associations with some sort of governance structure. Meridian has a lot of large homeowners associations, and that's typically how the neighborhoods are defined in Meridian. That being said, specific to the downtown, the MDC, the boundary for the Meridian Development Corporation, is established, and it is a subset of this larger area. So we actually expanded the view when it comes to the MDC boundary. So we're looking at a broader area than just the downtown core of Meridian, which is a subset of this plan. So yes, it's a comprehensive look at downtown Meridian. It even expands beyond the MDC boundary for the downtown area.
Okay.
And so on question number two, I think we're very confident to move forward today. We have worked hand in hand with the city of Meridian throughout the whole process. We've worked hand in hand with the Meridian Development Corporation, and we believe the projects identified are absolutely consistent with their comprehensive plan goals and also the goals of the Meridian Development Corporation.
Okay, good, thank you. And then finally, just one more kind of detailed technical question. If we could bring up the slides again, I don't know if that's possible. The slide showing the one that we were looking at just previously, showing the various projects that have been identified throughout the area. Yeah, I think that's the one. Let me see here. I guess, okay, so this planning area doesn't extend beyond, it doesn't extend north of Fairview Avenue, it appears. Is that correct? Am I correct? Okay. Then I guess that answers my question, because my question had to do with some potential planning further out. So thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
I just want to add for the record that when I chatted with Ashley on Monday, she was highly complimentary of the team and the spirit of collaboration and working together on this. So just want to echo Justin and all of your, great work on this, and thinking a little bit bigger about the footprint. It was very appreciated by our partner agencies. They're really happy about what's in the plan. All right, well, with that, is there a motion?
We get public input on this?
Oh, is there anyone here to testify?
We do not have anybody signed up. Sure, but.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion?
Sure. I'd move that we approve the request for adoption of the Meridian Downtown Neighborhood Transportation Plan.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I would just apply my comments that I had to the previous plan. I think we have to be much more integrated. We can't just sort of assume there's road connectivity for motor vehicles. This is a high priority movement of motor vehicles in and around Meridian. our plan should describe that and how this is integrated. So when we do go in, we do it one and done, whether it's a PCI improvement, whether it's an expansion of an arterial or whatever, so that it's clear these aren't separate and that we're mostly focused on certain aspects. So just in the way it's described, not into the identification of the different projects that might come out of it. I just would really like to see that described differently.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we do have a fourth item on the agenda that was moved from the consent agenda. It was previously item number 4. It's still item number 4 on the regular agenda, and that is the Orchard Street and Franklin Road Accessible Pedestrian Signal Bid Award Approval, ACG project number 32000, number 5. Commissioners McKinney and Goldthorpe, you were the ones that wanted this pulled. Did you have some specific questions? Let's start there and then have staff respond.
Go ahead, Dave.
Commissioner McKinney.
Yeah, I guess truthfully, what kind of jumped out at me is that we're on this project, and it may be entirely my fault for really not seeing this before. I don't recall when this came before the commission previously to, move it forward. But we're looking at pedestrian and signal improvements, and when I see the sticker price of $750,000, that kind of made me stop. And then I went back and looked at this intersection, at least, from Google Earth. I can see that we've already got crosswalks, we've got pedestrian ramps, we've got signals. And so I guess I'm looking at this and I'm saying to myself, what do we have here that justifies, and when you add in the design, we're spending in round numbers somewhere around $1 million on this intersection that appears to already have the kind of facilities that are needed. What am I missing?
Madam President, members of the commission, for the record, Justin Lucas, Deputy Director of Planning and Projects here at the Highway District. So, Commissioner McKinney, although there is infrastructure in place, as you noted, the infrastructure that is there today has been identified in our ADA transition plan and by our ADA committee as deficient. And so we have various deficiencies there at that specific location when it comes to the ADA compliance guidelines.
Madam President? Well, I was going to ask him what those deficiencies were, and I'm not too sure that you can even answer that right now, but I'd be really interested in that.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I probably don't want to just list off deficiencies, but typical ADA deficiencies are related to curb ramp, construction, slopes, things like that. Specific to this intersection, I think this is a critical point. This was a request of our ADA committee as it relates to what we call the pedestrian signal infrastructure itself. So the location of the push buttons, the type of push button. It's called APS, which is Accessible Pedestrian Signals, which is covered through ProWag. And there's specific design features with dimensions on where the push button is located in relation to the curb ramp. And that's the primary driver behind this project, is to meet those dimensions and to make this accessible and to meet all those standards that are now through ProWag. You have to do a design that is what we have in front of you today, which requires essentially reconstruction of all those corners. I think some of the curb ramps out there today are probably diagonal, and certainly are, and we're putting in directional ramps. So instead of one ramp, it's 2 ramps at the corner, things like that. I can probably go into more detail, but that's really the focus of the project. At the same time, like this, based on the commission's direction to go in once, the signal infrastructure out here is also very old.
Very old.
It's antiquated. This specific intersection was built many years ago. This is an older part, of the Boise area. And so when we're going in and we're doing all these upgrades to the ramps and all of the other ADA accessibility items, we're also replacing all of the signal infrastructure to bring it up to current standards from an asset management perspective. So I hope that attempts to answer your question. That's the overall purpose of the project.
Well, because I'm thinking in terms of a couple of things. First of all, when I look at aerial photos of the existing intersection, it looks to me like we've got 3 out of 4 of the corners appear to have directional ramps. There's only one that appears to have a diagonal ramp. I could be mistaken on that. There might be 2 instead of 1. And I can understand the need to, replace and update signals when they're needed. But when I look at this, I ask myself, how many other intersections do we have that fall into this kind of category? And are we going to have to be spending $1 million a piece ad infinitum fixing intersections? And not to take anything away from, ADA requirements and so on. But boy, this is a lot to do. And if we've got this kind of a huge burden staring us in the face, that's something that we have to carefully consider. Because ordinarily, I would think that if it has to do with, just making the push buttons, for example, more accessible, that strikes me as that's not shouldn't be a dramatically expensive issue. But reconstructing all the ramps at an intersection, I wonder sometimes, is it really necessary? Anyway, how many of these types of intersections do we have? What are we looking at to make all these kinds of fixes?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, off the top of my head, I can't give you an exact number.
Can you give me a ballpark number?
Yeah, what I can say, and I think Sean's here, total signalized intersections, Sean, is it about 500? So we have a total of about 470 signalized intersections within Ada County. Of that 470, not all of them are in this condition. Many of them are newer and have been upgraded and don't need these kinds of upgrades.
Sure.
But we do have quite a bit of signal infrastructure in this situation.
Probably more than 50%, isn't it?
Ballparking it, 100 to 200 intersections of this type, older infrastructure along major corridors along the bench and other parts that have been constructed many years ago under previous standards that don't meet any of the current ADA standards. This is all being reviewed and looked at as part of the LPI effort. This is one of the things that staff is working on, and you're going to receive an update on that in the coming months. But this is one of the core principles in the LPI effort, is to look at each of these, get a feeling for what's needed, and then bring that to the commission with a potential path if and how the commission chooses to move forward. And I think the financial implications of that are important and would be up to the commission for consideration on how quickly we can move forward on some of these infrastructure projects.
So then with the LPI initiative, my recollection is that we decided to allocate $5 million a year toward this LPI project. Is that correct? That's my recollection. I could be wrong.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, I don't think there's been any long-term allocation of funds. I think there's been discussions about that, but as of right now, I think that's going to be an annual discussion during the budget process for the commission to consider how much is needed or appropriate to apply to that program or any of the many other initiatives that exist at the Highway District.
Okay. So in any case, based on the sort of ballpark numbers you've given, if we've got 100 to 200 intersections that are in this kind of situation, and we're looking at anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million to fix these, and this may be, I don't know if this is an outlier example or if this is a fairly common example, and prices are always going to go up, they never go down. So we could be looking at $100 to $200 million to fix all these intersections. So what that does is that brings us back and says, okay, we've got to really carefully consider at what rate are we going to make these changes, because obviously we can't just afford to say do them all now. That would eat up our entire budget. And so I just want to make sure that we're aware the scope of the need and really whether we're approaching it in a way that is prudent for our long-term budget considerations, as well as, of course, long-term compliance with ADA. We're obligated to meet ADA requirements, but these older intersections like this, we're simply obligated to have a program to, over time, fix them. Is that correct? Is that what the PROAG requires?
Madam President, members of the Commission, Commissioner McKinney, yes, ACHD has adopted a transition plan which outlines all of the deficiencies, and then ACHD's kind of long-term view on how those will be identified. And then budgetary decisions are made on an annual basis.
And so in our long-term plan, have we kind of planned out, here's how long we expect to take to do this, or are we just doing that as it comes?
The ADA transition plan has some goals related to timelines, but once again, those goals are monitored annually by the commission to determine how feasible, those timelines are.
Okay. Well, I guess just my final comment on this project is, holy cow, this seems like an awful lot for a few ramps and some signals. And I recognize that signal hardware has gotten expensive. It always astonishes me how expensive it is. This is one that's here, but I think we just need, going forward, we need to be, the commission, I think, needs to be paying close attention to these to make sure that we're doing these in a way that's sustainable and prudent as far as all of our budgetary considerations are concerned. Thanks.
Madam President?
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, so I appreciated Commissioner McKinney and raising this, asking us to be on the regular agenda. I almost wanted to do it myself because I noticed the photograph in the staff attachment is very dated. The reason this is such a critical, I'm so glad this is up, and at $750,000, it seems to me it's a bargain, because that southwest corner has enormous density, and that intersection doesn't function anymore. And when we've widened some of the arterials to the west, we've taken out and replaced intersections that are newer than this one. This one doesn't function for the density of the residents. A lot of residents who walk and use wheelchairs in order to access the Fred Meyer across the street. So this is such a classic example of old infrastructure in an area where the city has prioritized investment and prioritized housing. And it's our job to just fix that intersection so it functions. And so I'm really pleased to see this on the agenda, that we're moving forward with it, because I've watched that development go in there. So that corner has a lot of more density, and it's impacting the movement of people on all the other streets. So I really appreciate that. The other is that density is improving the property taxes. There's more density, more people crossing at that intersection, probably than many of the other intersections we had. You heard me sort of choke on the notion of $21.5 million for 1 mile, which we talked about last month. There's more density on that one block than probably along that whole mile, right next to that intersection that people are going to be using. So it's so important that we not ignore, as the city's made these investments in housing and improving the use of the land that they have, the tax base that they have, that we not just build as we spread out in the outer regions, that we also replace old non-functional infrastructure. And this is a great example of that. And I tell you, as I drive on that quite a lot, and it doesn't work, and it needs to be replaced, and we shouldn't wait much longer to replace it. So I'm really pleased. I'm sure this was timed. A little surprised you didn't mention that development, but I'm glad it is timed, at least now, to get it done, as people have moved into that development, are moving in. Thank you.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yes, thanks, Dave, for those comments. They do represent some of mine. Mine mostly have to do, and by the way, to preface my questions and comments, I am a member of the ADA committee. So some might find it interesting or pathetic or whatever you want to describe that I have questions about this. But over the 9 years that I've been on this commission, I have watched with almost microscopic intensity the way we ask for bids and the way we estimate costs. And, back in the day in 2016, we used to get all kinds of underbids of small amounts. But over a year's time in 2016, we were able to sequester or save $6.5 million that we were able to make another neighborhood in Southwest Boise ecstatic over fixing some very problematic things that had been created because of our approval of a large planned community. when I watch how accurately our estimators have estimated projects like this in the past, and then I see $300 and some odd $1,000 increase over and above our estimate for something as small as this. My question is, what happened?
Madam President, members of the commission, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I think to get specific about what happened on this bid, there's really one driver of the cost that was in substantially above what we had in the estimate, and it was the traffic signal and illumination, basically the infrastructure and the work that goes into replacing the entire traffic signal system.
So we didn't estimate the labor properly?
No, we had all of that, I think, pretty well locked in. I think it's the materials themselves, and we've looked into this pretty deeply. And what we're finding is there's so much going on with construction right now in the Treasure Valley, and this is a small amount of contractors. This would be a subcontractor even below the prime that would be performing this type of work typically. And what we're seeing in this line item is it's just coming in very high, and we think due just to the overwhelming need for this type of work right now in the Treasure Valley.
Have we checked the prices that we're being charged to see if that's an accurate reflection on what the market is asking?
Well, yes,
that's for equipment, not for labor.
Yes, and the way that we know that is, we did get multiple bids on this project, and so you have multiple bidders. Anytime you have multiple bidders, you're getting a pretty good feeling for in this moment, and it's always within this moment what things are going for.
I understand that, but do we know what those mast arms actually cost, or how bad is it being padded to us?
Yeah, I don't have that information in front of me, Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe. I mean, we do have signal materials and things like that.
Oh, I know. I hope we recycle the ones that are being taken out here.
Right. Well, one of the things we're doing here is upgrading all of that infrastructure. It's very old, and so it can't be reused, and that's one of the...
Not even for a hawk signal somewhere?
Well, based on the age of it, we wouldn't recommend that, no.
Wow, okay. I'd still really like to know what the differences are between what, we could go out and buy this stuff for and what we're being charged. Because literally, you guys do an incredible job estimating. And somewhere, our other bids, some of them wanted twice as much as what our estimate was and more, which this is just incredible to me. And I'm all for keeping everybody safe on the roads and on the sidewalks and on the ramps and on the signals and the buttons, everything else. But I really would like to know how bad we're getting put over a barrel on this as far as equipment costs.
Yeah, and Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, and I'm glad Paul came up because he clarified. I think I had a misstatement. So we do provide the infrastructure itself, the actual mast arms and the infrastructure. So we have a really good feeling for the cost on that. That's not the driver. It's actually the installation and the labor that's driving this. So that basically flips what I said, and I had a misstatement. I apologize for that.
That's okay. Then I'm even more concerned because of are they paying each one of their operators or employees $100 an hour or what? This is obviously what they're packing into this.
And commissioners, we go out into a competitive bidding environment and we get the price based on the bids that are presented to us, and we bring to you the low bid.
And this is the reason why we're going to have a work session here in the near future on the ongoing mess that these huge differences represent to what we can do as an agency for our taxpayers and for the people that use these roads every day. Because 5 years ago, we were paying a fraction of this for the stuff that we're doing today. Bruce.
Madam President, Commissioners, if I could offer just a suggestion. But first off, as we've been in front of you many times, costs are not what they were years back. As a matter of fact, I think last week I shared with you that just the design costs alone have, since the end of COVID, have gone up 50 to 60%, and that gets passed immediately to the district. And so there are all sorts of reasons for that. I checked with our capital projects team, and if the commission would like to defer this for 1 week and such, if that's something, then we can go back and do all the homework. If the commission would like to proceed, we'll still do the homework and provide you the differences that we see going forward. But as Justin stated earlier, again, this is part of the LPI initiative. And on January 24th, if I'm not mistaken, you'll be receiving a very thorough presentation on what's ahead, what it looks like, how many, projected costs, that sort of stuff, that our team will be in front of the commission to again gain your guidance and direction going forward. But again, this is it is a little pricey, but at the end of the day, that is what the cost is today of implementing these designs. So whatever the commission's flavor is, more than happy to support, but one way or another, we'll have that information for you.
I'd like to know that information. I didn't think we needed to defer approval or denial of this, but this just kind of goes right hand in hand with what we talked about the last couple of weeks with design. I am so emphatic in my disgust at how costs have gone in our economy, in particular in our particular business, because it's many times what the national economy has suffered in terms of inflation rates, and I do not think that our constituents are getting their money's worth any longer just because of that, not because of anything else that we have control over. And so that's why I'm worried about whether or not we can do some of these jobs and some of these designs in-house better and less expensive than we can going out to bid. And I say that knowing full well that I'm really going to upset some people in that industry. And as most of the people in this agency know about me already, so what?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, again, I believe next week we have scheduled at yours and Commissioner Gold's request a work session on design.
Yeah.
We've already got a lot of the numbers and such, and we'll just put it all on the table and stand by for your decision.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have to say.
Madam President. Yeah, I was just going to suggest I'm fine with going ahead with this. I'd like to have us discuss this. I think this is also an indication, and I really appreciate, I want to kudos to staff to try and figure out projects that you can bundle together so you can get over the million or more multi-million-dollar mark, so that these bidders, these contractors, makes it worth their while to bid on them. We're dealing in a free market, and in the market, this is what they're okay. If we're going to go for this small project, this is the price we'll pay, because we got bigger projects. We have a labor shortage. They're dealing with it. They're paying for their labor costs, and they're dealing in the market. So we can't dictate to what they're going to bid on our project. So that's why it's much more appealing. Even though our project that we approved last month, we estimated to be about $20 million. It ended up we going for a bid at $21.5 million. So it was actually $1.5 million more. But there was lots to it. There was a couple of intersections and 1 mile section. But I would suggest we go forward, and we also talk about how we can address the current market that we're dealing with as we bundle projects together, and whether this is an example where a project might have been able to, we bundle a couple of these projects together to get them over the mark so that these contractors can come in at a level that is more conducive to what our estimates of the actual costs are.
And yeah, Commissioner Hanson, I just want to say I appreciate that, because that's what I want to channel this conversation in a productive way, not that somehow our staff have missed the mark or anything, because there are some really big external forces that all of us, like not just us within government, but private contractors, all of these different markets are operating under. So I would totally agree with you, Commissioner Hanson. And, we're going to have that work session. And so I want to kind of correct a couple things. So Commissioner McKinney was incorrect. There are two ramps that are not up to ADA standard. And I also just want to kind of paint the picture about what state of Orchard and, quite frankly, Franklin is. If you remember the Access to Opportunities grant that we received, multiple segments of that grant are either adjacent or cross Franklin or Orchard. That is where we have our most vulnerable users, largely in Boise, I would argue. And the data supports that. And that's because a lot of folks that live there are lower income or are displaced or are new Americans. There are very few places to safely cross Orchard. That is a fact. There are so many sidewalk gaps, lack of infrastructure. You just peel off and you're in a parking lot. Like it is like the Wild Wild West in a lot of parts on Orchard. Despite my pleading and the neighborhood's pleading, the city is focused on some other parts of their city. But Orchard needs to be a massive priority, and it's always been a priority for me. And I feel like it's very interesting that this type of level of scrutiny, although I understand we want to be transparent, we want to understand the root of these costs, especially if it's much above what we forecasted. But I would love to see the amount of rigor applied to the $21.5 million projects. I think this is a bit misplaced. And also the fact that it's 700-something thousand for an entire rebuild, basically of an intersection within the right-of-way that we currently operate in. That is not a massive investment. Considering the current deficiencies that exist within that intersection, I appreciated your point, Justin, about just the actual state of those mast arms. They are in a terrible state. Operating and working in, just walking or driving in that intersection is extremely unsafe. And so, yes, oh my gosh, it's money. But the fact that we just come off the heels of a $21.5 million project and we're trying to blow up a $700,500 project, it's
Madam
crazy.
President,
No,
nobody's
I
trying
haven't
to do
finished.
that.
I haven't finished. And this is a huge safety risk. And our ADA committee is advising over it. Our LPI, our staff that are working in LPI are saying this is a massive issue. And we are questioning the value of this project, despite all of that support. So I just want to say I appreciate all the staff's work on this. I appreciate the advisory committees elevating this because Orchard is massively unsafe. And we need to do what we can to make, especially this intersection with so many, I forgot to mention one other thing. Fred Meyer is on that corner. That is the food center for many people who need to walk or bike or don't have a car. And I want to mention, Commissioner Hanson mentioned, the density piece of it, right? There's going to be more and more people in that intersection. So it already is an existing deficiency and it will just continue to become a bigger deficiency if we don't invest in it now. So, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Just a little semantics here. Nobody questioned the value of this project. We were just talking about the cost. And we should maybe have delved a little deeper into that segment of road between Amity and Lake Hazel on Eagle Road, but we didn't. I would have been prepared to answer a lot of the questions because I know, for instance, that particular road had to have the roadbed raised 17 feet.
Sure.
And,
yeah.
and we could have discussed all that, but questions weren't asked. But anyway, that's not why I anyway was asking my questions. Had nothing to do with the value of this project. In fact, I plan on voting for it.
Well, thanks for correcting me.
Madam President?
Commissioner Hanson.
I would move to adopt the Orchard and Franklin Accessible Pedestrian Project Bid Award And I would add a request that staff come back to us for a presentation on the current market in which we are seeking bids and the way in which we're responding to the current market conditions with the incredibly tight labor market and the less interest there is in going after the smaller projects separately and how we're bundling those. So just a presentation on how we're dealing in the market so we can help pull the bid proposals closer to what our actual estimates are.
Second. Any other discussion?
Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney?
I just want to add a couple of comments. In as much as we have bids in hand and the project has been designed, generally in this case, I am very hesitant ever to pull back a project at this point in the process. And so I think it would be unwise to do so here. That being said, I think two things are worth understanding. The one is that if this sort of simple, straightforward project is going to continue to bring this level of cost, that suggests that we need to seriously consider the pace of our LPI and these types of projects. That's number one. Number two, I think Commissioner Hansen's suggestion that bundling these types of projects would produce any kind of cost savings in the future, that strikes me as unlikely, given that these projects are separate here and there, and they're small, and you don't get much economies of scale in a project like that. So, costs have gone in a direction that suggests to me that in the future, these sorts of costs are likely to be encountered in future projects of this sort. And let's just be clear that this project will presumably improve the pedestrian access at this intersection, but it won't do anything for automobile traffic because it's not improving any of the lanes at all. The capacity of the intersection is going to stay the same.
Well, just because the capacity stays the same doesn't mean that doesn't benefit drivers. That is incorrect. As a driver, this intersection is terrible. So take it with what you will. You can disagree with me. Have you ever been in that intersection, Commissioner McKinney?
Yes.
5 years ago? Recently?
Couldn't give you an exact date.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Commissioner
Just
Goldberg.
one, and it's just an observation again. And most of our staff who's been here a while will remember when the city of Boise came to us with some really interesting ideas about redesigning and kind of repositioning what Orchard was in the grand scale of the city. And we thought that was just marvelous. The same way as the Orchard Street extension, and then all of a sudden the priorities for both disappeared. And what a shame. That's it.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. That's the end of our regular agenda. Are there any public comments at this time? Stacy?
Mr. Majors, he didn't sign up to testify, but if you wanted to.
I'll stand before this wonderful panel.
Thank you, Mr. Major.
And here I thought you were just here to be entertained.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jeff Majors. I live at 9085 West McMillan. Last night we had our neighborhood association meeting. I'm the vice president of the West Valley Neighborhood Association. So, Madam President, commission members, I really wanted to just learn. I got an email a while ago. I think, is there anyone here from the public? There's not a lot, and that's sad, because I know how hard you guys are working. I was looking at each and every one of your departments, the commission members, the debate, the small amount of bantering, and everything that you guys do. I think I want to talk to you. I'm here more specifically, Maple Grove and McMillan, Hyatt Wetlands Park. Commissioner Goldthorpe, you had mentioned quite often these projects take a coordination of different agencies. I'm aware of that. I have spoke with Settlers. I spoke with Mr. Holloway for the city on parks. That park was developed, and there's a lot of history. I don't need to go into it, but it did have a comprehensive plan. It had railing, it had trees, and I've been just anxiously waiting for that to get further developed. And Mr. Holloway expressed, yes, that would be nice. ACHD has done a wonderful job as far as improving McMillan compared to what it used to be. I mean, I don't know, most of you probably remember, Maple Grove didn't even go through. They punched it through. And then McMillan has been improved. However, there is still work to be done. There's a lot of dirt there. I've seen cars come around. They've slid into the mud. The mud gets tracked everywhere. It gets on the sidewalk. And so I just have been patient, wondering when that road was going to get completed and maybe curbed and guttered on the Hyatt side. It is on the south side of McMillan. I'm very pleased with what I've heard about Goddard and the park and the extension. And so, as you were saying, the whole bike paths and everything, it's just a wonderful opportunity to be able to hopefully pull that together. So that brings me up with Settlers. I've talked with them. They give me the impression that, well, we'd like to do that. And for those who don't really understand how that dirt even got at Hyatt Wetlands, that was just the gouging of the canal, and they left the dirt right there. And hence the name Hidden Hyatt Lakes. So I once asked, I go, wouldn't that be great if we got all that dirt leveled so we could have this panoramic view on McMillan? It would be beautiful. It's a park. And he goes, well, then it wouldn't be called Hidden. I thought that was funny, right? Because I just thought, level the dirt, and then we could have a nice, beautiful park. So why am I here? I don't know, other than just to talk with you guys. I have called. I've been good 5 years just talking and talking. Well, it's not in the project, and I understand all that. I really do. I would like to just maybe get a suggestion on what I could convey, because we just had our, like I said, last night we had our meeting. We're involved with USTIC and Bloom and other things, but this is something that always gets brought up, and they know I had special interest in it. I'd love to go back and tell them, well, this is where we are. This is where ACHD is. This is where the park is. This is where Settlers is. Is there any input any of you could give?
Well, thank you for being here and being patient to share this with us. We can't take just to kind of get to the end of it, we can't provide any direction or action item based off of you being here, but we can direct staff to work with you to get those answers. But Commissioner Goldthorpe, did you have something to share?
No, that's exactly what I do, because you've actually almost gotten it right in terms of getting faster action or faster answers to your questions. And one of us is your commissioner.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you ask us, and you're one of the most civil people I can think of dealing with. If you were one of my constituents, I'd buy you lunch. But anyway, talk to your commissioner, and things get worked out quickly and completely, and in a 99% of the time, very satisfactory manner for folks when they come with your kinds of questions. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would be happy to follow up with you.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
if I may, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the earth that you're talking about is outside of our right of way, isn't it? It's outside the roadway.
Part of it is.
Part of it is, okay. Which strikes me that this is going to be a City of Boise, or whoever runs that park, that's going to be the party to talk to. Any case.
But we can figure that out.
By all means, talk to our staff and they can direct you to the right people to talk to.
Commissioner McKinney, I agree, it is. I just collectively, when I talk to the various agencies, I'm not feeling any opposition from one entity or the other. It's just getting this effort together and implement it. Because you're right, we need to move the dirt, push it down. I've looked over in the park. It's great place to just push it and scrape it. And then the city would go in and plant their trees. They're supposed to put railing up there, which would be wonderful. And if I understand the Goddard Park, there was talk about maybe settlers having a walkway.
Yep.
And how awesome would that be to be able to get on that walkway and then be able to get all the way downtown? That's what I think would be a wonderful addition for the city. But I understand what you guys have to do.
No, thank you so much. And that oftentimes it just takes involving one of us to get those conversations to go a lot faster. And unfortunately, so, but we're happy to do that. So if you could just leave your name and contact info with Justin, is that okay? Thank you. That would be great. The gentleman in the red tie. So.
I saw that one. Wait, I should probably go.
Okay. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Definitely, thank you. All right, if there's no other public communications, we're going to move over into, we're going to adjourn and then go into our post-commission agenda. Do we need a break? Sure, we'll convene in 10 minutes at 1:40. Thank you. All right. Thanks for being patient. We're gonna resume and start off with our post-commission agenda with our 2022 ADA annual report. And is it 2022 or should it be 2023?
It's a 2022.
Okay, good. Just want to confirm.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam President and Commissioners. For the record, Dave Rader, Supervisor of Accessibility and Mobility. I'm excited to be here before you today to present you with the 2022 ADA Annual Report. Before I dig into the findings, I wanted to say thanks to all the ACHD staff that worked on this report. The report required collaboration from numerous departments, so thank you to all of those involved. Just to give you an overview of the report, we'll cover the purpose and need, the process, the areas of focus, findings, and a summary. So ACHD works diligently to plan, develop, and construct improvements that bring the elements within the transportation network into ADA compliance. The primary purpose of this report is to describe the improvements of the pedestrian system that occurred in 2022 and track progress to full ADA compliance. The ACHD annual ADA report looks at projects completed within a calendar year. The projects assessed in the development of this report are those completed through private development, the Safe Sidewalk Program, capital projects, and ACHD maintenance. Once a project is complete, the project is submitted to ACHD's GIS department, and the data in the baseline data collected, the baseline ADA network data collected in 2019 is then updated. The updated data is isolated within the calendar year to identify the ADA improvements accomplished in 2022. So there are three main areas of focus within the ADA annual report. These areas are accessible pedestrian signals, sidewalks, and curb ramps. This table shows the miles of new sidewalk installed and existing sidewalk repaired and the type of projects these improvements were accomplished with. ACHD's capital projects and safe sidewalks program repaired 57.6 miles of sidewalk. ACHD's capital projects installed 11.2 miles of new sidewalk, and private development installed 163.2 miles of new sidewalk. Similar to the sidewalk slide, this slide details the number of curb ramps improved in 2022, both upgraded and new. ACHD's Safe Sidewalk Program and our own maintenance team upgraded 12 curb ramps. 50 curb ramps were upgraded through ACHD's capital projects, and 317 new curb ramps were installed with capital projects. Private development installed 2,525 curb ramps. ACHD also repaired 24 push buttons and installed 38 new push buttons for a total of 54 accessible signals in 2022. Here we see a summary of the ADA improvements ACHD accomplished in 2022. At this time, 68.8% of the sidewalk network and 64.2% of the curb ramps have no deficiencies identified. ACHD funded pedestrian investments were $4.1 million in 2022. Also included in this slide is a percentage of network with no deficiencies identified from previous years. As you can see, the percentage is in both sidewalk and curb ramp categories is trending upward from year to year. This concludes my presentation, and I will stand for questions.
Thanks, Dave. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I missed the correlation between 2019 and 2022.
Oh, sorry. So Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe. So in 2019, ACHD evaluated the entire network and did assessment of ADA. What compliance or what percentage of the of our infrastructure is compliant and what's not? So
I remember that. I just forgot it temporarily.
Just need to be reminded.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
Commissioner Hanson.
President Pickering. Thanks, Dave. I know this is required for us to do, but I really appreciate this. It is just the data behind the actual story of when you make things accessible, that means people in our community participate as employees, as consumers. And that's the underlying reason why the ADA was created, and that we have obligations as public entities in order to live up to the ADA. It's the people behind it. As President Bush said, this is not just about human rights, it's about the economy. They have just as much entitlement to participate in the economy, and they do. When one piece of sidewalk is missing or broken and inaccessible, it's a little like over here on 37th Street. It's like, okay, so where do you go? Does someone have to go home, all the way home, get a four-wheel drive vehicle in order to get over that piece? Well, think of it in those terms. So the story behind the ADA, it always bears telling every time we look at this data and say, okay, that's why we're doing it. And I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no, Commissioner McKinney.
I'm sorry, Madam President, I think it's interesting looking at these numbers, the dramatic proportion of these new ADA facilities that have been put in by new development. And I think that's worth noting, that our development community is doing a tremendous portion of the lifting in this regard. And I think that's worth recognizing.
Thank you. Well, if there's no other comments, thank you, Dave. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to another big one, the 2025, how are we already here again? 2025, 2029.
Saving the best for last.
Your work plan. Well, I wasn't going to, I can't play favorites. No. So, Rebecca, we're so happy to see you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Rebecca Phillips, Transportation Planner with the Planning Department here at ACHD. The purpose of today's work session is to kick off the development of the 2025-2029 Integrated 5-Year Work Plan with the Commission. This includes a brief review of our public and partner agency outreach efforts, the plan development process, and some early programming considerations moving into this update. We will also be going over all of the key dates to be aware of as this year-long effort moves forward. I would like to begin with highlighting our public partner outreach efforts. We started with our partner agency kickoff letters that went out in December, in which we shared the timeline, process modifications, and updates to the partners' previous prioritization lists. We held a partner agency check-in meeting yesterday where we went over all of the material provided, expectations, and updates. We had VRT, BSU, Boise School District, West Ada School District, City of Boise, Ada County, and Garden City in attendance. We were contacted by the City of Eagle and are in the process of setting up an individual meeting. And we are reaching out to the remaining agencies who weren't able to attend to schedule individual meetings as well. As always, we make ourselves available to answer any additional questions the partners may have as they begin developing their prioritization lists. These lists will be due back to us by March 15th, and our partners will have, again, 3 months for development and council board approval. For the public outreach, our new and improved public outreach interactive map went live yesterday and will be open until February 9th. We are very excited about some new upgrades to this effort, in which I will go over in the next few slides. As always, our communication team does an amazing job at social media outreach, and we will reach out to our neighborhood groups and ACHD advisory committees. Now to highlight this wonderful map created by Megan Merkley from our GIS team. The public will now be able to access this tool directly from our Integrated 5-Year Work Plan Engage page,
where they will have the ability to pull up the map and drop comments and pins where they feel a need exists. This year, we will have some new upgrades based on feedback from last year's effort, and the public will now have the ability to comment on existing projects that have been identified by either our neighborhood plans or projects in the current adopted integrated 5-year work plan. They will be able to rate the project, explain why it's important, and provide additional feedback as they see fit. And by clicking on these existing projects, it will bring up the project name, project timelines, which will be very helpful rather than dropping a pin randomly where a project may or may not already exist. It will also allow us to more efficiently process the data and provide it to our partner agencies.
Hey, Rebecca, I think that's a great new feature, but people can still put the pin down, right? And
yes. Yep,
okay,
we have another section to that, the interactive map. So the second option of the interactive map is very similar to last year's map, in which the public can view a blank slate, drop pins and comments with their requests. It also allows them to identify which type of request they're making, whether it be a bikeway, crossing, or sidewalk, etc. As always, a written survey is available upon request, and even though this just went live yesterday, we've actually received over 200 comments on the map so far, and additional comments through our project's email. An email went out to 9,000 subscribers in regards to our new website and the Engage platform, so they all have this information and been able to see our outreach. Here's a quick snapshot of the public and partner agency outreach. Kickoff letters were sent out in December. Yesterday, we held our partner agency meeting and launched the public outreach period tool. The tool will be open through February 9th, and our partner agency list, again, will be due on March 15th. On July 18th, we will hold both our public open house on the initial draft, as well as meet with our advisory committees. And lastly, both our public and partner agencies will have an opportunity to review and provide comments on the initial draft between July 11th and August 14th. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Christy Inselman for more information regarding plan development and upcoming commission key dates.
Hi. Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. For the record, Christy Inselman, Planning Supervisor. So I will be moving into, Rebecca and I are going to be tag teaming our integrated 5-year work plan all year. So you get to see our lovely faces all year on the integrated 5-year work plan. So I just wanted a quick refresher on the development of the integrated 5-year work plan, which is carefully constructed using a plethora of guiding documents and supporting efforts. Cities and counties developed their comprehensive plans that establish the land use vision for the area. This information is utilized by Compass for demographic projections and travel demand models. This information informs our strategic plan for asset management and resource allocation. All of these efforts, as well as our asset management plan, ADA, bike master plan, neighborhood plans, and CIP, create the foundation for which the integrated 5-year work plan is developed each year. Sorry, I'm gonna change my page. Selecting projects is always a multi-layered process. We get projects from a variety of places. As you just saw, we launched our public outreach tool where we get a great feedback from from the public. We get them from existing plans, from our partner agencies, and then we do have public request and an application process. These projects are compiled and filtered through our industry-leading prioritization methodology. Together with that and the programming of projects, it helps create the integrated 5-year work plan that you all know and love. I did want to jump into some early programming considerations for the development of the 25-29 integrated 5-year work plan. And yes, Madam President, I can't believe I'm saying 25-29 already as well. So as you guys know, the first 2 years of the integrated 5-year work plan are tied directly to our budget process that we do every single year. So for the 25 and 26, it will be a balanced budget. So it will be tied directly to what we're identifying as part of that budget process. In years past, we have shown a certain amount of some over programming on that second year, but this year it will be balanced with the budget. That Also, I wanted to call out that for that 25 and 26 balanced budget, we will not be showing any use of reserve funding for those first 2 years. Also, the review of over-programming in the out years. So the first 2 years tied directly to the budget. The last 3 years of our integrated 5-year work plan, we have historically shown over-programming. The purpose of that is for us to be reactive to additional funding that may come in, provide flexibility within the plan itself. We are definitely going to continue to do that, but we are going to limit the amount of over-programming that we're going to show in those out years so that the plan itself is a little more realistic on the amount of projects that we can complete within that timeline. I also want to highlight the vehicle registration fee program that we currently receive additional funding for that supports congestion relief and safe routes to school projects. That is currently set to sunset in 2028. Obviously, this plan goes out to 2029, so we will need to develop a plan with some options for projects that are going to fall over into that 2029 timeframe.
Madam President.
Commissioner McKinney.
Christy, I'm sorry to interrupt. What approximate level of funding does that represent, the vehicle registration fee?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, the vehicle registration fee funding, it equates to about $7 million. So half of that is utilized for congestion relief and half of that is utilized for safe routes to school. So just since 2008, just in our Safe Routes to School program, we were able to utilize approximately $42 million and 110 projects were completed through that funds.
And so that's an annual amount? About
Correct.
$7.5 million is now going away.
Unless it is reauthorized by the public. So this is something that would have to go back out as a voting item to the public to see if we can get those funds again.
Yeah, okay.
Madam President, just a clarification. Christy was, in her reference to the 7 million, was referencing specifically the additional money that we received when we renewed the impact or the registration fee back in 2000 and back in 2008. The total vehicle registration fee revenue for the highway district is actually about $14 million a year, and all of that it would be lost if the voters choose not to renew that. And so what happened in 2008, we promised a portion of the registration fee to certain project elements or project emphasis areas, but the total revenue is $14 million a year. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions, Commissioner McKinney?
No, just.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
I don't have a question about it. That's actually a little more than what I had thought. I just have a suggestion that we plan something to market to the legislature and the people. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Keep going though.
No, you're good. So included for early considerations, I also just wanted to highlight the development of our ACHD's planned facilities that include our Franklin, Apple, and Eustic sites. So those will be included in the update, as well as updated cost estimates for those projects and timelines to complete those projects. Because as we've already discussed, prices are going up, so those will be reflected in the plan as well. So what does all that mean? It does mean that there will be some project reprogramming and delay of projects is likely with the development of this integrated 5-year work plan. Here's just a highlight of our yearly process. As Rebecca mentioned, we already started that outreach back in December with our partner agencies. We're continuing through January. This one highlights a few more of the commission work sessions that we are going to have between now and the proposed adoption in September. Sorry. I got to catch myself back up to where I'm at. So as a reminder, our partner agency requests are going to be due March 15th. We'll have a 2-month window between that time and the next commission work session, which is scheduled for May 15th. During this time, staff would be happy to meet with the commissioners one-on-one, and any project request or projects should be provided. We are requesting they be provided by May 3rd. So this is your official homework notification day. If you can get those to staff by May 3rd, similar to last year, we're happy to meet one-on-one with all of the commissioners with any questions that you may have and receive your requests as well, or your projects request. And again, targeting adoption for September 25th. Yes.
Before you move on to your next slide, so I wanted to just ask, do you have kind of a feeling for when the cities will be, because I see the deadline for March 15th, when they will begin work sessions or start prioritizing that list? Because I want to make sure that we can be plugged into those conversations ahead of time as commissioners for the various cities that we represent. So do you know, are they generally, is that going to be in February, or would that be just more towards early March?
Madam President, historically, our partner agencies provide those lists at the end of the time frame that we give them. We did change the time frame for them this year. So years past, it was the middle of February that we asked that their list be submitted. We shifted that slightly due to feedback we receive from our partners. It sometimes is hard to get in front of their elected officials in those first couple, like month and a half of the year. So we did adjust that so that we could be more responsive to that. But historically, they get their list to us within the last week or two of that time frame.
But generally, because I also get a lot of questions from the public about when can they, in neighborhood associations, right? Because they submit their lists, but sometimes that is after a city council or the county has had a work session and made the determination of that priority. So that's what I'm kind of just wanting to understand is, do they normally meet as city councils or whatever towards the end of February to talk about this? I mean, generally, what have you observed?
Madam President, I can't speak for our partner agencies on when they're proposing to do that. They all vary. Some do not go to their commissions. I have not received a date of when they anticipate to do that. Okay. But we just held our kickoff meeting yesterday with all of our partner agencies. I'm happy to reach out to them and see if they have an estimated timeline that I can provide all of you so that you are aware of what their plans are.
I would very much appreciate that, because I think that kind of creates the additional confusion behind, when we talk to partners and they're trying to understand when they can plug into these other partner agencies.
And the other reason why we did the public outreach at the time frame that we did is because all of those comments that we received from the public will be shared with our partner agencies, so that they're going to be aware of what the public is saying through our comment map, through the surveys, similar to what we did last year. This is just going to be a much user-friendly on the staff side of the outreach tool. So we're super excited for that. Yeah.
That makes sense. And even though I think that I love that you're sending it out with them, but sending the list to them, sometimes they really want to be able to testify, right? And go that extra mile to reaffirm those priorities, because sometimes that can get lost in a very big list. So thank you. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that concludes the presentation, and I'll stand for any additional questions that you may have.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, I would request that as you present the numbers to us, that you don't sugarcoat the sunsetting of the vehicle registration fee, because I would like to know exactly how much we're expecting to lose, and exactly, in the worst case scenario, what type of projects could go away. And you can be as specific as you want. You remember, but maybe part of our commission doesn't remember, why the voter initiative failed. And I think that we could have maybe a short work session on that to talk about the surveying that was done, the results of that surveying, the amazing differences it showed from different parts of the county, what their priorities actually were, and then why, after all that looked so good, why it failed. And I'd be more than happy to participate in that, giving a political overview on that. Thanks.
We can make that happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan? And
Madam
Christy
President
and
and Christy, so can I just automatically say the list I gave you last year that didn't make it onto the list is requested, so that it'll be in there. I don't have to recreate
Madam
it.
President.
There'll be some new stuff.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, I have all of your lists from last year are literally in my book right over there. So I keep them with me everywhere I go.
I knew I liked you so much.
Remember, we can't play favorites.
I know, we can't play favorites. We, walk me through. So I got the website up on my, walk me through, is that through the Engage page, and this is, I don't see Shandy here. so when I say go to the website, walk me through how they do that. So if the website's up, I see my commute projects about ACHD and community resources.
Yeah, so that second tab over that says projects. If you
Projects?
literally just double click that, there's also a quick link if you scroll down on the page that says projects. That'll take you to the Engage landing page. And as soon as I'm happy
would
to
you do that on there?
Sure.
Great idea.
I just want to walk people through. I don't want to make it too. SH plans, propose a project. Is that what it is?
That's
Neighborhood
How long
enhancement.
ago was that?
This is only
Yeah.
six,
7 years?
7 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Okay, so first you go under projects.
Of course not.
Oh, down there. Okay. Oh, that looks different. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, do that one more time for me, because when I clicked on projects, I went to ACHD projects, and this thing says ACHD projects. It's a different screen, and it says. See, there's this. It just shows me projects. Then it says propose a project, but that's different.
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you click this twice.
Oh, so that's different.
Project. It's easier to scroll down and catch that.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try it again. It just seemed, in the old website, there was just like something on the front that says, go straight to it was really, so this is not quite as intuitive. This happens a lot in this building, it won't. Okay, okay, go down onto new project suggestion. Do you have, this is the other thing is that, with a lot of these, they're more than one. So is there a lot of other, I just assume there not be because there's not such a vast thing it's not like those automated telephone calls that drive you nuts. Press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for, you get through a whole bunch of numbers. It's like, I just want to talk to somebody. This is the one where they could I just want to tell you what I think I need without making them go through, it might be a bike project, it might be a sidewalk. No, just tell us what you need. We'll figure out. It might be multiple things. Probably it is multiple things. To let them, is there other or?
They do have an option for other.
Okay.
They can tell us whatever they're requesting on there.
Okay.
If it is something, we give them the option, right? There's a menu.
Oh, there we go. Crossing, roadway. Yeah.
If it's a road widening project, they can ask for that. But then they have others where they can say a little bit of everything.
Because most people approach their street on multiple levels. They're, So it's like, do I have to go back to the end after saying it both needs a sidewalk gap filled and it needs a signal? So I'll fill out 2 forms because you've got 2 different categories. So I know you'll sort through that. My suggestion is you just don't presuppose what the project's going to be, what kind of category, because we're not going that direction. We're integrating things. So just go in and just tell me what your project is. And you smart people will know what sources of money what it will look like.
Yes. And I would like to highlight, this map is a live map. So
Yeah.
all of these pins that are on the map right
Are
now.
already there, yeah.
Those are what the public has already gone in and placed on there. You can also click on any one of those pins that somebody
And
has
you'll see what-
placed to see what they've already put in.
Good.
I love it.
So
So-
it is very interactive. Our community is extremely well-versed in how we're asking for comments, and they are taking it and running with it. So we're very excited about that.
And this is where I think we have an advantage of neighborhood associations because they're increasingly recognizing, okay, go on. In fact, some of them just told their members to do this and they didn't end up doing a separate letter, which they missed an opportunity to get that little added edge. Actually, the neighborhood association also likes this. some of them came to me as a commissioner and said, would you submit these? You can, I will, but you can too. That's like, so the other is that, is there a way we can get HOAs to do this more actively? Because those areas that don't have active neighborhood associations, the HOAs really need to think about how they can use this more. And this map just shows you, this is as a dramatic example of where the NAs are active, and we need to balance that out.
Madam President, Commissioners, and Commissioner Hansen, I would also add that, you know, the Engage page is a great resource for our community. So when they subscribe to that Engage page, they get notification when something like this comes out. Like I said, 9,000 emails went out. Yeah. I think that's amazing. And the more people that subscribe, the more we can get that message out and get people engaged in the process. So that's an exciting tool for us. We're excited for it. If you couldn't tell.
I just want to echo the whole, I love the tab for the new, suggest the new projects. I think that created just a little bit of a barrier previously, and I just love how clean it is. And then also just visually, that's really helpful for us as a commission to be like, wow, okay, there's some activity here that we need to be cognizant of that we haven't been planning for. So I think that's not only great for the public, but for us too, to see where we haven't been planning for things, and so we can adjust that accordingly. So great job.
Absolutely.
Commissioner
And I just put another kudos out to Megan Merkley in our GIS. This was the brainchild of, I gave her an idea and she ran with it, and this is what she came out with. So we're super excited.
Fabulous. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Well, Jim and I were around here when Ryan made the very first presentation and showed us the interactive map. And if he were here today, I'd look at him and say, see what you started?
Hard to imagine us not having an interactive map.
Right.
Yeah. So, any other comments? Well, thank you, Christy. Thanks, Rebecca. Looking forward to seeing your faces for the next year. All right. Well, with that, we're done for the day.
Do we have an executive session? Yeah. Great.
Good, Stacy.
Nearly the number of emails and snares that we did in 2016.